All right, hey, I just wanted to check in because I finished two books this time. The first is Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King and Gerald's Game by Stephen King. Now, it was actually completely an accident that I even picked these both up during my same little book haul. I didn't know that these tie in together until I read the beginning of this book, where he mentions in it that it takes place at the same time as some of the events that take place in this. They kind of coincide with each other, and they were released within like a year of each other. So they kind of have some tie-ins, and honestly, very, very similar themes. I'm just gonna say this right away. Stephen King had child molestation on his mind during the years of like 1992 to 93, because that is very prominent in both of these books. And I'll get into that, but I'm gonna try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. I will say that it's gonna be kind of hard for this book, honestly, and this book, because this book kind of spoils the plot at the beginning and then explains it. This book, I have a lot to say about this book because I am very frustrated with it. So I'm going to get into these. I'm going to start with Dolores Claiborne. It is the first book I read. Both of these have an event, a major event in it, that takes place during an eclipse that passes over a certain area of Maine in 1963. And they have a little map at the beginning. You can see the path of the eclipse. And there's a cool tie-in with this where the main characters of both of these books actually like see each other through this weird spectral vision almost. And it's honestly really interesting. They're both seeing each other after the events of their major plots that happened during the 1963 eclipse. Getting into Dolores Claiborne, which I believe I was calling Claiborne when I picked this up. Dolores Claiborne is like a maid slash caretaker for an elderly, rich bitch, essentially. She is a lady who lives alone. This rich lady, her name's Vera Donovan or something like that. She lives alone with no family, just has kind of caretakers, and she's slowly getting dementia and starts seeing like these dust bunnies, and they're scaring the shit out of her. She's very freaked out and very scared of things. Dolores Claiborne will like get in bed and like hold her for a while to calm her down sometimes. But sometimes Vera is just fucking with her, and sometimes she'll just like shit the bed to make Dolores clean it up as like a power move kind of thing. And she's a true bitch throughout it. Dolores Claiborne I really like. She's in her like 60s, I think, when she's telling this story. Which, by the way, this entire book has no chapters and no breaks throughout it, which I believe is the first novel I've ever read like that. Which it was very interesting to me. It kind of kept me motivated to keep going because I am somebody that doesn't like to stop on a chapter break. I feel like sometimes that almost gives my brain an excuse not to come back to the book for a minute. If I'm stopping in the middle of a chapter, there's something going on and I'm more interested in coming back to it. It doesn't make sense. I'm probably in the minority there. I'm going to be in the minority on some of my opinions on specifically Gerald's Game, but possibly this book too. Outside of her work, Dolores Claiborne lives with her husband, her daughter Selena, and her son, Joe Jr. Her husband's name is Joe something or something like that. But Joe Jr. and Selena are her kids and her husband. Her husband is an abusive asshole who hit her for a while until she decided enough is enough, and she smashed him over the head with this jar and held an axe to him and said, if you keep doing this, one of us is going to die, pretty much. It's either going to be you or me. Gives him the axe at one point and is like, do it if you think you can. He doesn't do it. And this story, it tells you right at the get-go, is the story of her killing her husband, and why she killed him. And it's her sitting down and talking to these two detectives. And these two detectives are investigating another death, actually, that she's loosely tied to as well, but that doesn't matter a whole lot right now. When she hits her husband over the head and threatens him with the axe, her daughter actually happens to see it. And it leaves a obviously lasting impact on her daughter, and her daughter gets really close to her husband and becomes more distant from Dolores. Eventually, Dolores kind of confronts her about why she's acting differently, why she's not dressing up pretty anymore, she's getting acne, she doesn't really care about her appearance anymore, and she says, Dad molested me, and tells her about how her dad has been lying to her, except she doesn't really know what to lie about. Like he says the reason that Dolores smacked him over the head was because she wasn't getting her way with something, and she always needs her way. Just kind of like lying about the mom to the daughter. A very common thing with, I think, couples that are separating or divorced. So that is going on, and he gets close to his daughter, molests his daughter, and she is kind of fucked up now because of it, obviously. When she tells Dolores, when Selena, her daughter, tells Dolores this, Dolores starts to plot to kill him. And the plan is to do this during the eclipse. And so that's kind of all I'm going to say for that. The story, I think, is very, very good. I really did enjoy this book. And I really liked the way that the whole end sequence went down, the whole conflict. It was very well written, and I really liked Dolores Claiborne as a character. And I liked the way that things played out in the book quite a bit. But I think I'm going to leave that there for Dolores Claiborne and move on to the book that I thought I was going to like, but I'm frustrated in a lot of ways with this book. I actually just finished this book about 20 minutes ago, probably, and holy crap, I couldn't wait for it to end. I'll be honest with you. That is my first complaint, is that I feel like this book, for as short as it actually is, I know it looks big here, but it's a small book. It runs on, and I cannot fucking stand the main character, Jessie. She is one of the most annoying characters I've ever read. But I'll get into that. I will try not to spoil a whole lot on this book. But it's very frustrating. So the concept of Gerald's Game is very, very interesting to me. I was very excited to read about this because I like the concept so much. Essentially, Jessie, the main character, and her husband Gerald go on a retreat to a cabin that they have, and they decide to have some more fun sex, I guess, where he handcuffs her up to the bedpost and they have sex that way. Gerald, by the way, is a lawyer who provides for the family. Jessie is kind of a trophy wife. She doesn't really do a whole lot from what I remember. I don't think she has a job, and yet she still acts fucking holier than thou. Oh my god, I hate Jessie. I hate her. And I get she has a lot of trauma that comes out in this book. It is still no excuse to act the way that she acts. She is a very frustrating character. So anyway, I'm going to try my hardest not to go on tangents like that, but it is going to be difficult because, god damn it. Anyway, he handcuffs her to the bedpost, and she changes her mind. She says, I don't want to do this suddenly. Even though she doesn't seem to do much else in the relationship either. Whatever. And he just keeps going with it. He's like, oh, you don't want to do it? That's too bad, and keeps going with it. Definitely intending to rape her. Definitely not a good thing, but he also was kind of just going along with what they were originally planning, where she was going to do it regardless, and they were kind of like role play from what I understand. And the reaction that she has does not make sense. She kicks him in the balls, kicks him in the stomach, and causes him to have a heart attack in which he dies on the floor in front of her. Now, Jessie has almost no remorse for this. Throughout the entire book, she shits on Gerald the entire time. Her husband that she just killed, that has provided for her, and yeah, he was an asshole. He may have been manipulative. I don't know. She seems very manipulative. She is very manipulative. Even at the end of the book, she's manipulative. Didn't really learn from her mistakes in life. He dies. So he dies. She doesn't really give a fuck. She kind of cares for a minute, and then it goes away very quickly. Within, like, hours, a dog wanders in and starts slowly eating Gerald, and he comes back a few times to eat. The dog's name is Prince. Well, is it formerly Prince? I actually had to put the book down at one point because I have such a I have a weird emotional connection with dogs. And if there's a dog that was mistreated or abused, I have a very hard time reading about it or hearing about it or watching it, anything like that. I just have a very hard time with dogs like that. And this dog was a dog that used to be a pet, and the dad didn't want to pay some tax on this pet to bring him back into their home, I guess, and decided to just leave him out in the woods. So I had a really hard time with that, and I have that part aside though. He slowly is eating Gerald over the course of, it's only like a 2 days period, which isn't honestly that long for her to be handcuffed up. And within hours, she's hallucinating and like hearing voices. I think she was already crazy in my opinion, but she's just like, she hears voices of like Ruth, her old best friend, and this good wife. She's hearing all these voices in her head, and they're telling her to do different things. They're telling her to remember different things about her past, and she's just crazy within hours. And she blames it on thirst and stuff too. She does have a cup of water nearby, and that's part of the thing. Is she's at one point she's trying to get the glass of water. And don't get me wrong, it's a horrific situation of having your rotting husband that you don't care about on the floor beside you while you're handcuffed up, and you don't know how long you're going to be there. You don't know what the outcome's going to be. But it just felt so dramatic, so quick, for seemingly no reason. Now, within this time, some of the voices cause her to do some self-reflection on her past, in which she remembers a moment during the same eclipse as Dolores Claiborne's eclipse, where her father molested her. So there's another child molestation right there. Very similar situation, but this one was that her father took her away to go watch the eclipse. She wanted to go with her dad. She didn't really get along with her mom much, just like Selena and Dolores' situation. But she ends up getting, her dad kind of feels her up and jerks off onto the back of her panties, essentially, while they're watching the eclipse, and very uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to read that kind of thing anyway, but it's just an uncomfortable situation. Obviously, a traumatic situation for anybody. I'm not downplaying this at all, but I will say that this situation is almost blamed for how she acts the rest of her life, which I understand, and I know I'm going to get shit for this probably in the comments, but I just don't personally believe that any sort of trauma is an excuse to be a terrible person to everybody else. She forces a lot of her ideals of how bad men are off onto like her husband because of these bad situations, like with her brother. Her brother also tried to goose her, is what they called it, and her dad, but I feel like manipulated and was bad to Gerald because of the way that her dad acted, and it's just very strange. A lot of like just unchecked trauma, essentially, that is passed on to another person, and another person ends up fucking dying because it's frustrating. She's a frustrating character to read about. When I looked up online, before I started this, I looked up a couple other reviews to see what other people thought of this, because I was like, how is this annoying? A lot of people see where she's coming from, and I just struggled to see that, and maybe I'm just immature in that way. I just struggled to see where her motives made any sense. She doesn't seem to take any accountability for any of her actions. It's just frustrating. I know I've said that word a lot, but that is the definition of this book to me, is frustrating. One of the other plot points is that she eventually, at one point, sees a man in her room in the middle of the night and kind of blames it on like a trick of the light. That comes back at the end of the book for way, way too long. It is a very unnecessary plot point, is this man that she saw in her room. And I feel like maybe that's just my biggest issue with a lot of this book, is that there's a cool concept that is introduced, and then it is just pushed on way too long and harped on too long, and the same things are said over and over. The amount of times we heard about her arms going numb was just absolutely fucking insane. it just, and maybe I wouldn't have had as much of an issue if I liked the main character more, but I just couldn't stand her. I really couldn't stand her. The spectral vision that I spoke about happened during the eclipse, during a major plot point towards the end of this that I'm not going to talk about, and when her dad, right after her dad had molested her during the eclipse. They kind of see each other. Dolores and Jesse both kind of see each other, but then that's kind of it. There's not really anything else besides that goes on. It's cool, but it's not a huge selling point for why you should read both these books at the same time. Of the two, I would say Dolores Claiborne was by far better than Gerald's Game, if you couldn't tell by how I just reviewed this. Again, I'm probably in the minority on my feelings of Gerald's Game. I just really struggled getting through it, and like this book I read in a day, this book I read in like 7 days, because every time I would just get frustrated and put it down. I just couldn't stand. I couldn't stand the way that it was written, the character, the plot, the motives, anything. I couldn't relate to any of it. I really couldn't. And so, yeah. Again, probably in the minority, probably going to get shit for this. Hopefully not as much shit as I got for James by Percival Everett. A lot of people angry about my strong dislike for that piece of shit book. But anyways, I appreciate y'all for sticking around this long if you did, and thanks.